welcome to the upgrade once again. My name is Gary Muttley, and he is...
Len Carmichael, Landmine Studios.
So, Len, I have a question for you to start this whole thing off and just jump right in. When was the last time you really got scared watching a horror movie?
Oh, geez. Let's see here.
Like legit scared.
All right, so the last horror movie that legitimately fucked with my mind was The Babadook. And not because it was scary, but the little kid in the movie just fucking creeped me out to the point, like, that kid deserves a fucking Oscar. He looks so, like, creepy. Not to talk bad on, like, a child actor, but he looks creepy. And then he just did such a good job with being freaked out himself. It lightly freaked me out. But otherwise, it's been years. Like, there are moments in movies that have come out recently that have been disturbing, but it's not like I'm walking around the house with all the fucking lights on at 1 at night because I'm scared to turn them off and go to bed. Like, it's been many, many years since that. I couldn't even put my finger on it.
Okay. Well, I never even heard of that movie, and I'm looking it up, and it looks kind of insane.
It is insane. Basically, it's about a character in a book. It's sort of like Beetlejuice in that, like, you have to say the word a few times to make him come to life. But once he's out, he's then haunting you basically as your shadow. And only the kid could really see him, but the mother could feel that something was off. And like, it's a single mom, single kid story stuck in a house. And then even when they would go out in the yard or off the territory of the house, you know, the entity would continue to follow them.
Okay.
It's not an American movie. I should probably say that, because pretty much all American horror movies since, I'm going to call it 95, have been pretty much trash.
Yeah, well, you know where I'm at with horror movies because of that reason. But I couldn't tell you the last time I was legitimately scared by something like that. But I had something happen that kind of changed that, which was, you know, we're recording this on Tuesday night. Last night, I've never been so scared in my life.
Because you were watching the RNC?
Because I watched Kimberly Guilfoyle start fucking screaming at me, and I had to turn it off. Like, I was shit scared. Like, she legitimately scared the fuck out of me.
I still haven't gone back and listened to this, so I know that enough people have referenced this in the past day in my life that I need to go back and watch this. But I'm still a little blind to what happened. But yeah, go on.
She went up there, and I couldn't even pay attention to what she was saying, and I went back today and caught some highlights of it, because last night I was sitting there and I was going back and forth between two train wrecks because I decided to watch Monday Night Raw, which is a fucking train wreck, as WWE usually is. But we weren't recording for various reasons, and I decided, well, I'll watch some of Raw, and then I went back to CNN and watched some of the Republicans.
The Republicans is Raw. It's basically the same thing.
It was like going back and forth between two car wrecks. and at one point, you know, they just announced that different people were coming, and like I missed the fucking gun couple, the lawyers. I missed Herschel Walker.
Why were the gun couple there? Like, why was Herschel Walker there? I heard that Dana White's supposed to be showing up at some point and
I
talking.
didn't hear that.
Yeah, I hear he's showing up to the RNC to talk about whatever trash comes out of that bald fuck's mouth.
Well, I'll get to the gun couple.
Okay.
But at one point I flip it on and Guilfoyle is on, and she, like, and I guess parts of the thing last night, there were people there was a crowd, but when she did her speech, it was in an empty room, And she's just screaming in a fucking empty room. And
no one.
Screaming and and I'm just like, oh my God. Like, it was fucking scary.
So one of the notes that I saw from that speech that other people pointed out were that she suggests that her family immigrated from Puerto Rico. Now, I don't know if you know. I mean, maybe I'm bringing some brand new news to you, Gary, but Puerto Rico does not require immigration to the U.S. because technically it is part of the United States. So why are you pandering to, like, just out and out racist people by saying that your family immigrated from Puerto Rico? It's deflection. It's just a lie. Like, it's not immigration. Sure, it's like if I immigrate from, I don't know, let's call it New Jersey to Pennsylvania. I just crossed state lines. That didn't go anywhere.
Well, first of all, it's probably wishful thinking on her part and the party's part, because if it was up to them, they'd cut Puerto Rico the fuck loose in a second. Because
well, that's a totally different story.
Trump has even said
he doesn't want to deal with them at all.
They're dirty poor people.
Right.
So he he'd like to just trade. I think he wanted to trade them for what, Greenland or something.
Something like that.
One of those other, we're doing trades like it's fucking sports now.
We're gonna let Puerto Rico go. Greenland, we'll cover you.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus Christ. But, is it really a surprise?
No, it's not a surprise. It's not that much of a surprise.
It's just more stupidity because these guys just rewrite or try to rewrite history, because they're also sitting there sucking up Trump's ass talking about how great he did with COVID.
Right.
And it's like, are you fucking shitting me? Every other country got a fucking handle on it for the most part, and our numbers are skyrocketing, but it's like, it really is some Baghdad Bob shit.
Mm-hmm.
And if you people listening don't know about Baghdad Bob, look it up. Because back in the Iraq War, as the Americans were rolling over fucking Iraq, Baghdad Bob is on the screen like, oh, there's no Americans here, everything is fine. While American troops are just running over shit. It's like, no, they're not here. I don't know what anybody is talking about. They're not here. And it's just some blatant, ridiculous bullshit. And that's what this whole fucking hand job of a convention is. Because it's just like, oh my God, it starts off with, what's his name? Dolan, the Archbishop of New York. And I'm just like, oh no.
Don't,
like, oh no.
See, I the last time around, I tried to watch the RNC. I watched all of the NC the last time around with Hillary. I would call it 70% of this time around with Biden. And I just can't bring myself to tune into the circus that is this RNC circle jerk. I mean, like, that's literally all this is. I sent you the article earlier today about Abby Johnson.
Yeah.
The speaker who previously on a YouTube video said that it would be smart for cops to racially profile her own son because she has an adopted brown son who's more likely to commit an offense than her natural born white son. And it's like, number one, these are the type of people that shouldn't be adopting any brown children.
Absolutely.
Number two,
because in the end they'll just throw them in the fucking well.
Right. They don't care about this child. They thought they cared about the child, but it turns out that their prejudices are so deep that they can't even get their head around the absolutely abhorrent nature of the things that they would say about them. Like, they're not fit to be the parent of any sort of brown child. I don't care whether you want to say he's black, Hispanic, of any kind, whatever. If he's browner than white, he or she has no business being in their care.
I mean, I would question whether they should be allowed to have any children, period.
Any children, but you can't take someone's personal children. So, like, you'd have to have more information than that. But if you're adopting children, you should definitely not be able to.
No.
And, like, it's just so painful. Just, I literally, I was reading it, and I wanted to smash my desk into just the smallest pieces, because I feel so bad for that kid to be stuck in that household. Like, can you imagine just how demeaning it must feel to have a mother who thinks that way? And he probably doesn't even realize it at this point. He's not going to notice it until he's like 25 and really kind of out in the world on his own, and he's presented with this information about the people that were sworn to take care of him.
Right.
Like,
it's insane. It's totally insane. I just can't even. But this is how these people operate. Like, their way of thinking is just so fucked. Because, let's go to the other thing that I said we were going to come back to. Nothing screams tone deaf like having those two idiots that had the assault rifles pointed at the Black Lives Matter people.
Yep.
Like really, you invite those people to the convention, and there they are talking about how, oh, well, they want to get rid of our suburbs, our beautiful suburbs, and like, this is the whole thing now too. It's like, oh, well, the Democrats want to move the black people into your suburbs. Like, what the fuck year is this? Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Like we're really with the black threat? Like,
oh, that's a real thing. It's always been a real thing.
It's just so crazy that this party would just completely embrace it. Dude, and like not even like yeah, okay, you've had people dabble in it in the past, but like, it's just so blatant. And you don't see a single Republican like, yeah, you know what? Fuck this shit. Like, I can't fuck this right now.
They
like,
just sign on to it.
Not one. You see all the former people, you know, these people that used to work for Trump all coming out against him, and these other people who aren't in office anymore or whatever. But every single one who's in office, you don't see a single one of them like raising their hand like, yeah, fuck this shit, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like, are you serious? Like, not one?
Not one.
Even people that spoke out, like they were talking about Nikki Haley because she spoke last night, and she in the past has spoken out against Trump, but she gives a speech and she's afraid to even mention the word Confederate flag. She mentions a divisive symbol without mentioning what the divisive symbol is. It's like,
well, because she was coached not to say things. I guarantee it.
Oh,
I guarantee they had to approve every speech, and they made changes over the course of the last couple of weeks to make sure that nobody would come out and say anything against him.
Oh, I guarantee you that's true. But Jesus Christ, does anybody have a fucking backbone?
I guarantee you anybody that did have a backbone wasn't invited.
It's just
so I'm
nuts.
seeing news that they kicked off the convention by pretending that Trump kicked ass on COVID. Is that the truth?
Oh yeah, that's what I was mentioning before. That they were sucking his ass on the COVID shit and like trying to play it up like, oh well, he did so great, and like, are you for real?
170,000 plus dead. Yeah, he did great.
Yeah, that's what I was saying before. It's like with the way the numbers are here compared to numbers all over the world, like, except for some of these small countries where the numbers really get fucked up because you got small populations.
Right.
You know, so it throws off your percentages. Like, our percentages are through the ceiling compared to the rest of the civilized world.
Yep. The only place that's like somewhat close is Brazil.
Yeah, and yet this dude is patting himself on the back like Barry fucking Horowitz. Like, are you kidding?
It's
like, and not even just him, but everybody else is just sucking his ass too. Like, oh, he did so great. He did. Oh, our president. Thanks to his leadership, like everything is just feeding this fucking egomaniac while he just kills thousands of people because there's gonna be and I mean, we talked about it plenty of times. Once they try to open these schools, especially,
it's gonna be a
shit
show.
Oh, it's gonna go through the fucking ceiling, and yet here's the guy threatening to cut funding if they don't open the schools and accusing everybody else of doing it for political reasons. Meanwhile, this motherfucker is the one doing it for political reasons, and like.
Well, I know for a fact that teachers don't want the schools open. Administrators of all kinds don't want the schools open.
Oh, yeah.
But there are school districts that are pushing forward anyway. Like New Jersey, Murphy has said that, you know, we can go ahead and do completely virtual if the school districts decide that that's what they want to do. So, Lawrenceville, Hamilton, and Trenton, and one other school district in Mercer County have all decided that, hey, we're going virtual. But Ewing has decided they're doing a blended approach to getting back to school. So kindergartners through second graders are going back as of September 9th. So 2 weeks from now, today, they're going back. And then like a month later, or like 2 weeks or so after that, the third to fifth graders, and then 2 or 3 weeks after that, the middle school, and then finally the older kids are going back at like the beginning of November. And I'm like, I think you did this backwards, but they didn't really like do it backwards. What they did was they appeased the government in that they're sending the youngest kids, the ones that need the most personal care from a parent, back to school, while the older kids can stay home and work on their own. No big deal.
Right.
So, you know, it's part of this whole plan to quote unquote restart the economy by, you know, basically screwing over everyone in its wake.
Right. Because, I mean, and this is what kills me, because anybody with basic foresight knows what's coming. And we talked about it before the colleges started having this problem, and before other people. And listen, I'm no genius. I'm no genius either, man. Like, we don't work, you know, in areas of the government or whatever that like have access to secret information. Like, we're just two observers here, just looking at shit from the outside. Just reading the tea leaves, baby. We're looking at it with some fucking common sense. Yeah, we're just looking at it with some fucking common sense, because we knew that once they opened the colleges that shit was going to go through the ceiling, and it did.
Yep.
We know that once they do this shit with the grade schools, it's going to go through the ceiling, and in some places it already has. Like, it doesn't take a genius or like a fucking master's degree in education or biology to figure this shit out. Like, It's obvious if you're paying attention. And yet these people still want to blaze through like on some hope shit. Like, oh, well, maybe it won't happen to us. Like, but what happens when it does happen to you? Like, it's insane.
It's going to happen.
And it's because in New York, they're still talking about this date in September, but the unions have already said that if things are not the way they want it to be, and of course, you know, like I watched de Blasio this morning, the mayor,
right?
And he's a fucking asshole.
Well, I mean, he's always been an asshole.
Everybody hates de Blasio. De Blasio, he goes and speaks, and the cops stand up and turn their backs to him, and then he goes and backs the cops, so everybody else hates him. All the minorities hate him. A lot of people hate him because he got his wife into this shit with a nonprofit. I think it was a nonprofit. I forget now. Whatever it was. But there's a lot of money missing, so it all looks very sketchy. So people hate him for that. People people hate him for the race shit because they're like, stop hiding behind your black wife and your half black kids. Like, right. He's just such a fence walker that he's managed to fucking piss everybody off and get people to hate him. And here he is this morning in a press conference, and somebody asked him about, the teachers have been talking about a possible strike. And the first thing out of his mouth is, everybody knows that by law, city employees are not allowed to strike. It's like, yeah, way to fucking fuel the fire there, buddy. Because if it's a safety thing, I think they might be allowed to strike, or they'll at least be willing to put up the fight.
Right.
And, it's one thing if it's about pay. If it's about safety, you might find a much more sympathetic judge. So I don't know why you would even want to. Yep. Like, why would you even want to pick that fight? Because to me, if I'm the teachers and I hear him say that shit, it's like, oh, fuck no. Fuck that guy.
Fuck, I just saw some new news that so Trump just handed out a presidential pardon on national TV to a convicted bank robber.
Who?
Let me figure this out here.
Like he saved this for the fucking. Oh my god.
Trump. John Ponder is the felon who did the work, and the FBI officer who arrested him was also there, Richard Beasley. So he just handed out.
What?
Yes, and it was done basically game show style. Handed out a pardon on national fucking television. This is just absolute insanity.
Oh my god. With the FBI agent who arrested him.
Yes.
The former FBI agent who arrested him and has since become one of his best friends. What the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
Well, listen, let me give you another piece of info from last night, okay?
Okay.
He's sitting down with a bunch of people who were hostages in different countries. And he managed to get them all back, okay? One of them was in Turkey for I don't even know how long. I'd have to look it up. And while the guy is sitting there, he says something about the president of Turkey being a fine gentleman or something like that. It's like, really?
Listeners, you can't see me, but I'm just shaking and rubbing my head because it's just too much for me.
Oh my god! And I'm just like,
too much.
And I didn't even catch it because I didn't really watch it. Like I flipped over at one point and saw him talking with these hostages and former hostages. And I was just like, whatever. Like it's just another hand job moment. You know what I mean? Because everything is all about stroking this dude's ego, which is just completely insane. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on here? And now this. But, he's the president of Law and Order.
Yeah.
And he's only had, 9 or 10 people associated with him catch charges since he
I wanted to ask you about that. Do you think Bannon's going to flip?
I hope so. I really hope so. But
everybody that's been on his electoral campaign management staff, etc., over the last 4 years have been convicted and attempted to flip on him, or at least given up tidbits of information.
The reason why I question whether he will is because he's already on some bullshit of, this is a conspiracy because they don't want us to build the wall. Like, yeah,
bro,
he already
stole all the fucking wall money.
Yeah, he already doubled down on his bullshit. But, it's all the typical fucking scumbag shit, because here's Trump saying, I don't like it and I never liked it. But then there's Trump Jr. on camera telling them a couple of years ago, I think this is great what you guys are doing. It's like, but, we'll just lie our way through it because that's what they do. But that's because nobody really calls them out on their shit. It's like, a couple of reporters call him out on some shit, and then he just manages to ignore them. But like
all the time.
Yeah, but none of these people, like, the whole party is all in, and it's just crazy to me because, to me, the whole party is all in, and I could not, and I consider myself an independent. I don't really like the two-party system. Period. I hate the two-party system, but if I had to pick one, generally I lean more Democrat, but even if I lean more Republican, the shit, I've seen so many Republicans, not in office, come out and say shit like, yeah, they've just gone too far. They've just gone way too far. I just don't understand how anybody at this point could vote Republican, just because, not even like on issues.
It shouldn't be.
Not even just on issues, but just the pure batshit side of it. Guilfoyle last night was fucking insane. Having these people that pulled the rifles on the protesters, like, that's just tone deaf as fuck and just not giving a fuck.
But they're just going to co-sign it anyway because they see Biden as a step back towards Obama in one way or another. So, basically a lot of people flipped over to vote for Trump just because he was not a woman and he was not the black guy. He was the, rich white guy, and they were like, yeah, he's all right, I'll do that. He's talking about stuff I like Make America Great Again, aka Make America Whiter Again. And they're going to continue down that line. Like, I'm 0% belief that Biden is going to win this. I would like him to win it just from the standpoint of getting away from Trump, but I'm not dumb enough to believe that there isn't a chance that he doesn't win.
Well, the other thing too, when it comes to the whole Make America Great Again thing, that's what it's turned into, but that wasn't initially what it was, at least on the surface, because a lot of the ideas that Trump was talking about, some of them were actually good ideas. He just had no plan and no intention of actually following through on them. Like the idea of bringing more manufacturing jobs in and stuff like that. That's a good idea, bringing more jobs in.
It's also a pipe dream.
It is. And because what it starts with is regulation of corporations, which he's never going to do.
Doing that.
And by the way, let me go on a tangent here for a second, because everything that I hear focuses on one thing that is a total and complete fucking work. Okay? The stock market is a fucking work.
Well, it's always been a work.
But so many people are, of course Trump touts it, but all these other people talk about it and they're like, well, the stock market is up and there's been big gains and this and that.
The rich people are doing fine. That's what it means. It has nothing to do with me or you or any other regular schmo.
That's exactly my point, because everybody refers to the stock market as this metric that controls the growth in our country, and it really doesn't, because you know what the stock market does for the average schmuck like you or me? Dick.
Yeah,
it
nothing.
does.
Absolutely nothing.
Because of course the stock market's up because their boy, who's making all the moves for them, is in charge.
Yep.
So they're gonna get unlimited growth, and it doesn't matter if there's millions of people unemployed, because they get their growth and they get to move their, they get to move their shares and move their goods and whatever else. Well, and, they find ways to make money.
Here's a stock tip. Apple's going to split on September 1st. So if you jump in today at $500, they're going to split it basically 4-1. So you're going to get 3 extra shares for the one that you already had. and they're going to drop the price to about $92 ish. So over the course of the next 6 months, when they drop this new iPhone 12 and the stock market reacts and bounces, and you kick up to, let's call it $150 to $200 a share again, and continue to climb from there, you're going to double your money without even doing any work. So, hey, stock tip for all you listeners, go buy, even if you only buy one share at $500, you'll end up with 4 at like 90 some dollars a share, maybe a 125 a share, and your price will, I guarantee it, bounce again, because this is probably the 12th stock split that they've done, and they always split right around $500 a share, and it always seems to climb back there. So you're not going to lose money on getting into Apple until they decide they're done.
Right. But all I hear about is, oh, the stock market's up. It's like, who gives a fuck? That doesn't mean to the average.
Nothing.
The average Joe, it means shit. You know, if they're lucky, maybe they got an E-Trade account with like a couple of stocks, and maybe it'll make them a little something. But like,
so, in my previous life, I worked for Merrill Lynch, and then I worked for BlackRock, and I was doing the back end of trades, so doing reconciliation between the traders and the banks. And I moved from there to working for a company that had to do with insider trading, and it was specifically looking at trends based on how well or how terribly stock prices moved after insiders made trades. Now, these are okay insider trades, not ones that would be seen as illegal. So It's okay if you work at a company to buy or sell the stock, as long as you don't have material non-public knowledge of something coming one way or the other, good or bad. It's totally fine for that. So, you know, I understand how these things trend and work, and the idea that me, as a guy who had a small trading bucket, I guess we'll call it, for probably 4 or 5 years, and I made some money trading stocks, but for the regular person who does not have the time or the monetary means to be focused on stock price fluctuations and the ability to get in or out of the market in general, utilizing the stock market is not for you. It is for people who already have money and want to gamble, just like going to AC or going to Las Vegas and gambling, but just on a different platform. Literally, that's all they're doing. And these are people who don't need to worry about their money.
Right.
They're not worried about where is the loaf of bread or the package of eggs that need to get on that table at the end of the week. They have excess money to do this. The regular people like you, like me, like most of our listeners, they don't have this expendable income to go out and get into the stock market in any meaningful manner.
And I'll be the first one to tell you, I know next to nothing about this shit. I have like a mental block when it comes to financial shit. Mm-hmm. Like, I just have trouble wrapping my head around it. Like, I could fix computers, do all kinds of other shit, but when you start talking to me about any of this financial shit, like, it's like how I can't read music either. Like, I just have a mental block. Like, I just
That's
can't.
Not for everybody.
I just can't wrap my head around it. So I'm no financial whiz by any means, and I'm not even close. And like, I'm one of those regular guys, and like, other than a 401k, like, you know, that shit is all Greek to me.
So, I mean, I graduated with a finance degree from Rider University. I get finance. I understand how it works. I've specialized in international finance specifically. So looking at prices of currency, etc., along that lines. I understand how most of it works. I have no interest in it. After 4.5, 5 years of college, and then 4.5, 5 years of being, well, actually, it was closer to 9 years of being in the financial industry, I legitimately want nothing to do with it. I don't like the people, and I don't like the work. So
Right.
I actually took a 50% pay cut to leave the business and go back to working in education because it was that draining on my soul. So I understand where you're saying like you don't have the mind for finance in general. I happen to have a mind for finance, but I don't have a heart for it.
Right.
Like I don't want to chase that money like that. Like it's just not, the people who do it are soulless pieces of shit.
That's I've heard that elsewhere, that the type of people in that business, like you either you don't stay in that you don't stay in that business for long, or if you stay in there for long, you're a different type of person.
Yep. I met some people that were nice on the surface, and I would never directly disparage them because they treated me well, but I clearly saw how they treated other people.
Right.
And I was like, I never want to get to that point where they think they can talk to me like that, because we will be fighting in the middle of the fucking office. A boss that I had, and honestly, this is getting deep into my psyche, but I don't even really care. Anytime I'm hyper stressed, the boss that I had when I was at my that insider trading company, he's in my dream. So
Jeez.
I know when I'm like over the top stressed because I dream that I'm back at that job. And I could tell you that maybe 10 times since I've been there, I've had like dreams about this situation where I'm headed back in the office, and like they emailed me and asked me to come back, and I'm going back, and the office is always just a little bit different, but it's kind of still set up the same as it was when I was there.
Yeah.
And like I spend the entire day there avoiding the boss guy, and he always catches me at the end of the day. And he's like, I want to look at your numbers. And it's like the same anxiety that I had of working there the whole time. And like, so I know when I'm stressed, when I have to deal with this. You know, I know this is a tangent off of what we were talking about, but dealing with him, he legitimately is a horrible, horrible human being that if I saw him on fire, I would not even spit on him. Like his whole car, like he could be in a fiery car wreck and I know it's him, and I would just drive by. I might laugh because I don't like him, because he rubbed me that hard the wrong way. Like 14 people before me, I watched him do the same pattern of nitpick, get in a fight, nitpick, bigger blow up, and then all of a sudden they're fired. And a couple times people were literally in the hallway threatening him. So one day we were in the office and I'm sitting there and he starts nitpicking me, and I'm like, yo bro, look, I'm not everybody else, and you're not going to talk to me like this. If you want to have a conversation, we can talk like men. Otherwise, leave me alone. And I walked out. 3 weeks later, it's the day before my birthday, and I come in the office and I go and I sit down at my desk. I've already previously packed my stuff because, 3 weeks earlier, I had the feeling that we were at the point that he had made the decision that he was going to get rid of me.
You knew it was coming.
So I packed all my stuff. The second in command comes trotting down the stairs, and he's like, hey, can we go talk to the boss in the main room? And I was like, oh, sure. So I walk in, and the guy's like, hey, shut the door. And I'm like, all right. So I shut the door, and he's like, all right, this isn't going to be an easy conversation. I was like, hold on, bro. This is going to be as easy as it needs to be. What are you offering me? Because I don't care about the rest of this shit. And he's like, what, you don't want to hear what we have to say? I was like, no, because I know you're firing me, and I don't need to sit here for a half an hour while you talk about nothing. How much are you offering me? What is the deal? What are the terms? And, what do you got to say? So he's like, all right, well then. And he grabs the paper that he had already printed out and he hands it to me. And I read it, and I flip to the second page. And basically it's a non-disclosure agreement, which has passed now. It's like I can say whatever I want.
Yeah.
So basically it's a non-disclosure agreement asking me to not work for any other company that does the same type of work for X amount of years, and that I cannot sue them for mistreatment, racism on the job, and a couple other things. Like there's like a whole bunch of stuff that's already built in because he's been sued by other people already.
I was just going to say he's got it all worked out already because of all the shit he's gotten into before.
So basically I worked it out so that they paid me that day to go away with residual payments for all the money, because I was an account manager, residual payments for the next 6 months on any account that re-signed based on my work for the last year. Ooh. So, and I had audited every single thing that they sent to me.
Of course.
So I got paid through April on this account that they were constantly sending me checks, and I signed off. So I sign off and I'm like, all right, are we good? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, you could have done this yesterday. You didn't need to make me drive back here. And I get up and I walk to my office, and the second in charge is following me. He's like, I'm just going to make sure that you don't take anything. I was like, oh, my box is already packed. Here's my password. I handed him like a piece of paper I had underneath my keyboard, and I was like, here's the password to everything. I've already wiped the computer. All my stuff was off of it. And I grabbed my box, and I was like, I just want to go upstairs and say goodbye to one person, and I'm out of here. So I walked upstairs and said goodbye. I got my stuff, and he's like, why was your box packed? I was like, I'm not fucking stupid. I've seen 14 people leave here in this same exact manner. I'm just not going to get in a fight with this guy. So what's the point? I was like, I packed my bags. I was waiting for you guys to let me go. So I walked out of there and I never looked back. But as I said, anytime I have like mega stress or anxiety, my mind puts me back there. So I never, ever, ever want to work in finance again. And that's what keeps me from getting into the stock market. I have the money to do it if I so choose to do so. Like I'm not rolling in money, but I buy stuff for the studio. I could easily not buy stuff for the studio and invest in my future by investing in the stock market. But I don't want that stress. It brings a whole new level of assholery, and that's how you get to be a guy like Donald Trump, dealing in money and making deals and going back on deals and just being super cutthroat because you don't care about anyone but yourself.
Yeah. And I got to say, without getting into detail or outing anybody, personally, I've known a few people like that just it's like a disease. It's just, it gets to the point where like they'll do anything for that fucking loot.
It's a drug.
And Trump is totally one of those people. Mm-hmm. But I've known other people like that, and I've had, people in my circle that have gotten fucked over by that, by like family members that were just so hell bent in that direction that like doesn't matter who you are. And yeah, Trump is totally one of those type of people, but there's so many people like that where they're just, it's like this crazy fucking disease, like this hunger that no matter what, doesn't matter if you're family, doesn't matter if you're a close friend.
I will tell you,
they'll throw you out under that bus just to get that money.
My mother told me after I left that job, it was probably 3 or 4 months into the new job that I had at the time. Right. And, I was making less money. But, I was a much nicer, more calm person, no longer chasing paper. I was just chasing my own happiness.
Right.
And she was like, I didn't really talk to you for like 2 years because it was never a fun time to talk to you. And I was like, yeah, I understand, and I can see that now looking back, because everything was about how could I make what deal be better for whoever so they could have more money in my pocket. Because basically I was getting what was it, 12% on every deal that I closed, and like most of the deals were between $50,000 and $150,000. So every time I closed the sale, I was banking thousands of dollars.
Wow.
So I was like, yeah, I gotta make this fucking money.
Yeah, but in the end, it's not worth it.
Not at all. Like, sure, I have lots of toys, and I own a house, and I have a couple cars in the driveway or whatever, but it's all immaterial bullshit. Like, I don't really care about any of that. I just have it because at the time it seemed like the thing to do because I had such excess cash.
Right.
But now looking back, I was like, I should have probably done something better with my life.
Yeah, but that's why a lot of those type of jobs, because that happens a lot with that type of stuff, but it happens a lot like that I've seen with like website people too.
Oh,
where
you get burned out.
They're just running, and they make a ton of money, but they're working crazy fucking hours, and then after a couple of years, it's like they put that work in, got that money, and then they just check out and just go elsewhere. Yep. And I've heard, I know people, the websites are like that, and I've heard that game development is very much like that, video game development.
I can only imagine, because the pressure on a game developer is insane.
Oh, yeah. But they'll go and, it's not purely motivated by money the same way like what you were talking about, but it's just the deadlines and all the craziness. It's like, yeah, they're making a lot of money, but they're burning themselves out. Mm-hmm. And it's like they put in their couple of years and then they take their money and fucking run. Yeah. But it's not the same disease like these guys that make the money and then just keep making the money and fucking everybody over to make the money.
Yeah, I mean, that's all they want to do, so.
Yeah. But
it's just speaking about
it's
money,
nuts to think about.
Did you see that New York State is actually investigating whether Trump inflated the value of his assets? Which I can tell you he definitely did. I don't need an investigation for that. But
I didn't see that yet, but it doesn't surprise me at all, because I think this was all trickled down from wanting his tax returns so bad.
It is.
Because there's
connected to that.
Guaranteed there's a lot of funny math in there, and a lot of things that'll be exposed when they finally get that. Because I think, yeah, they're going to keep delaying it, but sooner or later, it's going to come out. He's going to give it up, and when he gives it up, they're going to go through with a fine-tooth comb, and it's going to be bad.
They're going to find that there isn't anything in there that isn't corrupt. All of it is corrupt.
Oh, sure.
From pillar to post, end to end, he is going to take that beating for it. And the problem is his followers will not care. They will ride that fucking boat out. It doesn't matter. Like, it almost doesn't even matter whether they get it anymore, because those of us who are smart enough to understand the smoke show that's going on around it know that he's hiding it because there's information in there that will incriminate him. But, his people won't do anything about it anyway, so it doesn't even fucking matter.
Yeah, it's crazy because it just never ends, and you really got to wonder if and when he finally gets voted out of office, where is he gonna end up? He can't, because there was all that talk. I forget if I sent you this article, or you sent me this article, but there was, talk not that long ago. There was an article talking about what if Trump decided to pardon himself?
Right. I mean,
and like nobody has an answer because nobody ever thought about that before. And it's like if anybody is testing the limits of this shit, it'll be this guy.
Yep.
And I just don't even.
I don't even. Fuck. Like that just is painful. And you definitely sent that to me. I didn't send it to you. I read it from you.
Okay. I honestly don't remember because that was probably a month ago or more at this point. But
another question.
But that's. Go ahead.
Did you see that Trump said that he's going to send cops to the polls on election day, despite that being a fucking offense, like a federal offense? You cannot do that.
Well, there's been a lot of discussion about it simply because, yeah, it's a federal offense, but also how could he possibly do it because he doesn't have the authority to do it?
Yeah.
But that's the crazy thing too, because
his people will agree with it. We think he's right. These people are going to cheat my president out of here.
But listen, the whole thing. Let's go back a little bit. Did you watch any of the footage of this Postmaster General guy?
I watched the footage of AOC taking him halfway to task. I watched that this morning. Basically, she set the trap, and when she has her information, she is going to come back and snap that rack on his neck.
Mm-hmm.
And I fully support her doing it.
Yeah.
I feel like that is a perfect position for her to step into doing, because she A, has nothing to lose, B, she's going to win her district, so she's not going to be going anywhere, and C, she's a pit bull when you need a pit bull.
Right.
I am fine with that. Like, let her take this dude straight out into the backyard and just tear him apart. I'm fine with it. Let's go.
Well, yeah. And once we talk about this Postmaster shit, I want to come back to her.
Okay.
Because there's some conversation that I really want to have about her.
All right, I'm in.
But this guy, I don't even remember his name. I have to look it up.
Oh shit!
You ever watch?
Don't. Fuck, I can't remember his name. Did I ever watch? Doofy. No. Sergeant Doofy.
His name? Joel. What is his full name? Louis DeJoy.
Yeah, DeJoy. That's it.
All right. You ever watch? You ever watch one of these like crime movies, and there's the dummy that's part of the crew, and they're just setting him up to be the fall guy?
This is him.
That's him.
This is him.
Because you just look him in the face, and he looks like that guy. He's just happy. He's just happy to be here. Yeah, he's the schmuck. And he knows it, because if you look at him, he knows that he's there to be the fall guy. And in the end, if he gets into any serious trouble, he figures Trump will bail him out, which he may or may not do. Who knows? But this guy just looks like a fucking dummy, and they're shredding him. But of course, again, I have to rant about the political side of it, because the Democrats go all in on the dude, and the Republicans are like stroking his hair.
Yep.
The Republicans ask the questions, and they're like, "Oh, it's such a shame that they're going after you," and it's like, get the fuck out of here, really? Like, it's so bad. It's like everybody's just falling in line, and it's just so terrible. But this guy looks like he's the fall guy, and he's such an idiot. And yeah, he's been getting the business from some of these people because he should.
Yep. Like, my problem is, okay, you put this dude in here. You don't think that he's pulling weird side deals to make this shit happen the way that it's happening? Like, his previous 2 companies are now one company, and then he's dealing with them on the side as the Postmaster General in basically secret meetings. Like, I want to know, what is he doing? Like, where is he going with this? I need to follow that money trail because if you want to find out anything, don't follow the problem, follow the money. I want to know what is about to go down.
I mean, obviously, part of the end game here is to fuck around with the election stuff, and it's not necessarily to fuck it up as much as just to create doubt, because that's all they need.
Chaos,
yeah. The chaos is all they need. But it goes back to what I've said many times, which is that Trump is the ultimate anarchist. That he just creates these fucking problems. Just, because if everybody's too busy looking at the problems, they're not looking at him.
Yep. As long as something is going on, it's a distraction technique. It's basically sleight of hand.
Yeah. And look, because I happen to pull this one article up. This article is titled, "We Now Know How Much Trump's Postmaster General Slowed Down the Mail." And this is from yesterday.
Okay.
According to an internal USPS report that Democrats presented during the hearing, but it wasn't done by the Democrats, it was done by the Postal Service, the on-time delivery rate for first-class mail fell by about 8.1% between the middle of July and the beginning of August.
That's a huge collapse.
Well, that coincides with the time that he implemented a new policy that required drivers to start their routes on schedule and leave mail behind if the sorting process ran late.
No, that's not how it's supposed to work.
And of course, you add to that the fact that they were taking sorting machines out.
They were, or just turning them off.
Which he flat out said they won't be putting them back. And he got a lot of shit for that. But,
bro, telling them to sort by hand is fucking insane.
Well, they spent... listen, how much do you know about the main post office in Manhattan?
Nothing. I know nothing about the main office, post office in Manhattan.
Let me tell you about the main post office in Manhattan, okay?
Okay, I'm listening.
Because there's Penn Station. There's Penn Station, which is, there was an old Penn Station that was torn down, and they built Madison Square Garden, and now Penn Station is under it. Right. Across the street from there, with the big columns, what the old Penn Station used to have, is the mail building. They only use the very front of that building now for just a retail post office. All of their mail sorting and everything else is done a couple blocks over on the west side. Okay. So there's an entire building there that was originally used to sort mail going back, to when they built it, which was probably the beginning of the 20th century. I'd have to look. There's an entire building that they have that they don't need anymore, because now they're looking, and I think Facebook signed a deal that they're going to turn that into office space for themselves, because it's been sitting vacant for years and years. Because as the post office modernized their setup,
they needed less space.
They needed less space, and instead of using that space, they built it a couple blocks over because it was easier to get the trucks out on the road that way. Because it's right on the end next to the west side,
the highway.
Right. Yeah. So So you've got this giant building that used to be used for mail sorting when they did it by hand, or even in the early days of machine. This building has been sitting there empty for at least 20 years.
That's ridiculous.
So, you know, part of it they're going to turn into a new train station because Amtrak is going to go into that side.
Okay.
You know, as their way of dividing things up more, because eventually there's a whole other thing there as far as Madison Square Garden eventually having to move, and they tried to get a perpetual lease, and the city was like, "Fuck you," you know.
So they're gonna have to wait. Madison Square Garden is no longer going to be at the location in which it is.
They're eventually going to have to move. Well, you realize that's the 4th location of Madison Square Garden.
I did not know that.
Yeah. The original, well, it's called Madison Square Garden because
it was on Madison.
It was by Madison Square Park, which is 23rd Street at the end of Park Avenue.
Right. Yep. I know.
And then it moved around a few times over the years, but I think that's the 4th location. So eventually they will have to move because they were trying to get the city to give them a perpetual lease because the city wants to build Penn Station up. The city is fed up with the fact that
it's in the basement, basically.
Well, all these deals were made over the years. I mean, the old Penn Station, there's still people that cry about it, understandably so, because the original Penn Station looked like Grand Central, looked like that.
It was a really nice.
It was a really nice marble building, and they tore the fucking thing down and dumped it in the swamps in North Jersey.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I mean,
so that I'm
going to say that the other train station is fucking beautiful.
Right. And it was all the same shit. It was all marble, all really nice. If you look, it had skylights, so like natural light would shine down through the skylights, like the glass ceiling, and shine all the way down to the platforms.
Oh, wow.
And they tore the whole fucking thing down so that they could build a bunch of office buildings and the garden at the end of the 60s into the early 70s. So, anyway, now that we got on, you know, my New York City nerd history tangent.
Hey, that's information I didn't have, and now I'm going to go research all the different locations of Madison Square Garden because I'm legit intrigued.
I don't think I have a book about the garden, but I definitely have at least one, maybe 2 books about the old Penn Station.
Okay. I mean, I figured that Penn Station didn't always look like that, but I figured there had to have been a better reason than just to put Madison Square Garden there.
No, it was all a money deal. Right. And that, by the way, was what led to them creating landmark laws. Because people were like, well, we don't want this to ever happen again.
Well, I mean, New York City has a number of things that I wish I could have seen. Like Ebbets Field, I wish I could have seen that. Yeah. I wish I could have seen the original Giants stadium for the New York Giants.
Yeah.
The baseball team, not San Francisco.
I was there a couple. Well, the original. Oh, you're talking about the baseball team.
Yeah. No, not the original football team. I'm talking about the baseball team. Like, there are landmarks that I wish I could have seen. Like,
right. Well,
that just got torn down either due to dilapidation or
the polo
grounds. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, listen, we could do a whole episode about that because I'm a fucking nerd with that shit. Because I got books and books coming out of my ass about all that New York City history shit. Like I could blow your mind with some of that shit.
I'm ready to have my mind blown.
But back to what I was saying before we got on my nerd tangent. The bottom line is, you know, we spent all this time modernizing the whole postal system for all these years to the point of where that building is obsolete and now going to be used for office space. And they moved all the operations over there just to go backwards.
Yep.
Because that's what this guy is doing. He's going backwards.
It makes no sense at all. Like, 0 sense.
Yeah, because now you want these guys to sort by hand. And there's so many other issues, like we were talking about it in the episode with Rich, about the money issues and about how they have to pay their pensions like 75 years ahead, all this other crazy shit. The post office has been in trouble for a long time because that's where they bury a lot of weird money shit. That's always been the hiding place in government federal budgets, where they hide some weird shit in the postal service because it's already fucked up. But this guy, it's like it's a whole other level, and Trump is just using that as a way to just create more chaos. Because we already know,
and his people don't care. They revel in this
That's the part
shit
that I really don't understand. That's the part that I just completely don't understand, because it's like, how are you people all in on this guy? And I can't.
I can't. I don't know how.
Because the guy lies constantly, and I've said a million.
He says is true.
As I've said a million times before, it's not media bias. It's not that CNN is telling me this or that or whatever. I'm watching the dude speak out of his own fucking lips, and more than his lips on fucking Twitter, because he's a fucking twat.
Yep.
And it's just like you're contradicting yourself. You're lying through your teeth. It's not media bias. It's not that I'm listening to MSNBC or CNN or whatever. I'm listening to the dude himself.
Yep.
And I'm listening to him lie through his teeth, because there's no evidence of a lot of the shit that comes out of his mouth. And then he turns around, like with this birther bullshit that he tried again. And then he's like, oh, well, I don't know. I just heard some people talking about it. Just like, oh, well, I don't know. I heard her speak and she had some good ideas talking about the fucking demon semen doctor. It's like, yeah, okay, dude.
Oh, God.
And then he starts, like, reposting QAnon shit, and it's like, motherfucker, you're out there.
Did you see that they exposed who QAnon was today?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And
all got played. You all got fucking played by E-Chan.
You know what? And meanwhile, you know what I don't see? I don't see that on every fucking news website.
Oh, no. Nope, because that would just tear it down. And then you got fucking the white power dude. I don't even want to say his name because I don't want to give him any play. Coming out for Biden, and then Biden's team basically telling him to kick rocks. Like, this whole 2020 cycle is just fucking insane.
Listeners obviously can't see this, but I'm gonna show you something real quick, because this is the base that I use, that I've been using live since I got it a year ago. And on the strap, can you see that?
Yeah, it's a picture of that dude getting punched in the mouth.
It's a pin.
Yep.
Because I saw this and I was like, I have to get this.
You know what?
And it's a pin of that dude getting punched dead in his face for being a fucking Nazi prick. I wear that pin since I got it. I wear it on stage. You know, even when I had my old bass, I had it on the strap, and I've worn it on stage at every show, because fuck that dude and fuck Nazis.
I'm letting him know right now that I will gladly one-on-one square up with him any day, anytime. Bring it. Ready.
Nothing entertained me as much as watching that dude get duffed out on camera. Because there he is talking bullshit, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, just BAM!
Got him.
Yo, so good. It had to be. It had to be memorized in a pin form.
You know what I want out of life at this point? I want Crime Faces to do the fucking The overlay. What is this? Comes in with that bonsai. Yo, that shit is hilarious. And if you don't think it's funny, you got problems.
What hood is this? Oh, white power needs some flowers. It's in the ground. Oh my god.
Comes in with the super bonsai.
That shit is so good. If you don't know, look
Go
up
watch
Crime Faces on Instagram. You will not be disappointed. Believe
Honestly,
me.
if you listeners, if you don't laugh, there's something wrong with you. It's not me, it's you.
Oh my god. You should cut in some sound. Oh man. But all right, so let's go back to something else that I mentioned.
Okay.
AOC.
Yes.
There's been a lot of hate, but she's also got strong support.
Yep.
And the first thing that I'll say about her is that I would really like somebody to tell me why they hate her without using things that apply to the Orange Goblin.
You can't.
Because you could say, because people say, oh, well, she just sounds stupid. And like, okay, this guy doesn't? Like,
see, anytime I hear, okay, so I'm gonna rebut your statements as you say them. So anytime I hear someone say that they think that she sounds stupid, no, she's a college graduate. She can speak perfectly fine. She has the ability to put together entire sentences. Now, when you think that she sounds stupid, I think what you meant to say is she's saying things I don't like to hear.
I mean, she's not afraid to get a little hood sometimes.
I'm fine with that.
But, see, we're fine with that, but as I've often mentioned, it's like you got the city people and then you got the Hicks. So, of course, the Hicks are like, oh, right. I don't like that shit. But whatever. I just think I hear a lot of hate all the time.
Oh, anytime you post her, you get a lot of, not you specifically, but just you, the ethereal you. If you post her, somebody's going to jump in there and say something disparaging about her. But really what it comes down to is that she's a minority woman with a lot to say, and people don't have the interest in hearing it from her.
Well, am I her biggest fan? No.
Neither am I. But you know what?
I hear her saying a lot of shit that I don't disagree with.
I hear her saying things that I more agree with than disagree with. Exactly. And I enjoy her zest for the job without it feeling like she is pandering to corporations. I feel like she actually does care currently about people in general and things to be better. Like, whether I agree with her stance or I disagree with her stance on any specific thing is irrelevant. I don't think that she's giving me a load of shit, and that's what I like. Well, what I like also is that she doesn't have any fear. None to be found. She's not afraid to go, like what we were talking about with all these Republicans just falling in line. She's got no problem, because she called out Pelosi. Did you hear about this thing this week? I did. Yeah. She called out Pelosi because Pelosi said this whole thing about how anybody who backs someone going against an incumbent within the party is going to get banned. And then Pelosi backs a Kennedy, who was going against an incumbent. Yep. And then, of course, AOC calls her out on it. And it's like, you know what? Good for you. Like, go get it. Because you know what? Fuck that bitch. I don't like Pelosi anyway because she sounds like a crazy old lady. Well, and she's the last person. Crazy old lady, so. I don't think she's somebody that should be out there speaking for the party because she just comes off like a fucking lunatic. And I don't like
besides that, like, there she is, signing shit. Like, that whole thing with her ripping the paper that time, I just thought was just blatant. It was just like,
cheese.
Stop.
It was such cheese. I was like, yo, what are you doing?
Yeah, it was just such a showboat, but like, to me, it was like an attention grabber. It's like, look at me, and I hate people like that.
She's fucking 80 years old.
She's been involved in a bunch of these. She's what?
Nancy Pelosi is 80 fucking years old.
I mean, that doesn't help things, but maybe it's time, Yeah. But that's part of the problem too, because there's a whole age thing there, not just with her, obviously, but with
a lot of the people that are
a lot of Biden, Trump, all these guys. Because Biden will be if Biden gets elected, he will be the oldest president ever elected.
Yep.
I
mean, and Bernie would have been too had he been elected. It didn't matter who was at the top of that ticket towards the end of this running. If either of the Democratic candidates that were most viable had gotten in there, they're going to be the oldest fucking guy.
Right. Well, but here's another thing with AOC. I think a lot of people don't like her because they see her as a threat.
Of course.
And I think her and, these other progressive people.
The squad.
This is the funny thing. A lot of people are like, because at the Republican convention, they were talking about progressives and socialists and all this other, like, oh, let's scare people more with the boogeyman. Like, this country in general, at least when it comes to the cities, and let's face it, like, I don't want to sound like a dick, but the cities is where a lot of the big money is made.
Of course.
And like, let's just admit that fact and stop with bullshit. But like,
with the way that farming has gone in America, the center of the country brings in very little monetary value to America. It's all done on the coasts and in the big cities. So we're talking, basically Baltimore to Boston, along the seaboard there. We're talking LA, we're talking San Francisco and Seattle, and then you're talking Chicago and you're talking Texas. Anywhere that the water touches or has a large fucking city population. So when I'm talking Chicago, I'm talking all the way up through Minnesota. Like, I'm talking that whole area in there, from Detroit around the lakes up into Minnesota. Those are the areas in which the most money is made in the U.S. And then you go into Iowa and you got corn.
Right. So, let's face it, that's where the money is made. That's where these things are happening. And those areas are becoming more and more progressive. Everybody could fight it. Everybody can argue about it. But if you look at it, talking about police reform, talking about all these other things that are considered progressive issues, those parts of the country are going more progressive. Mm-hmm. So, here we are just continually resisting the fact that the country is starting to go this way, simply because you've got other parts of the country that don't want to go that way because they perceive it as a threat. But living in cities, like, it makes sense to us because this is the way shit needs to go. Right?
Well, I will counter your argument that it's really that way. I mean, I agree with you that it is the way to go. But there are still portions of people who live in cities who are conservative at heart, and they harken back to the people that I was talking about who are making the money. So our earlier conversation today, where we were just talking about the people who are in the financial industry and who are running corporations, they are still conservative when it comes to their money in general. And while some of them may be socially progressive in some ways, they are fiscally conservative as fuck. So, like, I would say that there's a larger population of progressive people, but I'm not going to say it's only relegated to the center of the country when it comes to that type of stuff. Like, those people are still here.
Well, part of my point is this is why she not just her, but progressives in general, this is why they're seen as a threat. Because they're a threat. Well, they're a threat to people like that because they're not going to sit there and cater to corporate interests as much, which is a big part of it.
I mean, I'm not going to say I'm putting my name in the run for anything, but if I were to run, I would 100% be on the same track as the squad. And for listeners, if you're not aware, the squad is AOC from New York City, Ilhan Omar from Minnesota, Ayanna Presley from Massachusetts, and Rashida Tlaib from Michigan, and they're all in the U.S. Congress.
Well, my point is, like I said, they're seen as a threat. And, of course, the Republicans are playing them up as a threat. But even Democrats,
well, they're threatened by them too because they're much closer to a true left than the barely left centrists that populate the Democrats.
Right.
Like, honestly, until a few years, I would say until Reagan, Democrat and Republican were much closer together. It was left, right, but everybody was basically center. And with Reaganomics, it started pulling a lot more people further and further right, while the Democrats kind of stayed in place. They didn't go further and further left. So while the right will continually call them the left, it's really just left of them. It's not a true left.
Well, going back further from that, and this is just me speaking based on what I've read, because this goes before my time, before I was born, but there was a point where the parties kind of flip-flopped.
Well, yeah, that's I think in the late 50s.
That's what I heard, like the 50s into the 60s or something like that.
Yeah.
That the Democrats were more about religion and guns than the Republicans, and at some point they kind of inverted, which is really weird. And I've always been curious as to how and why that happened, and I'll have to look into it.
Well, a lot of the Democrats were Southern Democrats.
Right.
And they switched over to being just Republicans, and they pulled the party. That would make sense. That's really all it is.
I figured it had something to do with the civil rights movement, but I didn't really know details.
Yep, that's the general time frame. It happened in my mother's time.
Right.
It definitely happened in my father's time.
So they switched because they weren't allowed to hate black people anymore, basically.
Yep. So you had to find a new place to peddle your hate.
Yeah. We gotta go to the other side. They let us hate.
They'll let us say whatever we want to say.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense now. Well, I've floated this before, and I'm just going to throw it out there because, once again, I speak off the top of my head a lot of the time on here, and sometimes things don't make sense, and sometimes maybe there's a method to it that I just don't know or don't understand. But I had this thought the other day, and I know I mentioned it to you, and I mentioned it to one or two other people, and it's something to maybe get into a little discussion here. At this point, we've got the Republicans and the Democrats, and you've got this small progressive group that is slowly growing and gaining a little more traction and a little more attention and a little more support. And Bernie Sanders is a big part of it, but let's face it, based on age, his participation is going to be limited. But what if the progressives that we're talking about, like the Squad and whoever else, as things continue to escalate between them and the rest of the Democratic Party, what if they turned around and said, well, fuck you, and started their own party? Like, do you think that that's, like I said, I'm talking out of my ass. Like, I don't know if that's realistic just based on how those things work. How
Gary,
parties
this is the place to talk out of your ass.
Yeah.
If you're going to talk out of your ass to me. I am 100% on board with a viable third party.
Right.
Something that has enough traction and just enough experience that people will be able to take it seriously. Because notoriously, the Libertarian Party, the Green Party, and etc., all these little sparse third parties that have existed for a long time have never been able to gain traction because they can't even barely get one person into a lower level office, let alone into a presidency. What we need is people like the Squad that are already entrenched to say, hey, I know that you were voting for us as Democrats. We are going independent, but we intend to stay here and support you the same way that we did and grow your party from inside the system. It's one of the easiest ways to make that happen, because otherwise you're just trying to break into the system with you need a crowbar and fucking a couple bricks, and you're already in. Stay in. So sure,
yeah,
I'm down with that idea. Maybe it's time. It's an extension of what I always said that Bernie Sanders should have done. Yeah. Back in 2016, where he should have just been like, all right, so you guys don't want to run me as the presidential candidate? Peace. I'm running as an independent. I'm out. Well, yeah, I mean, it was more than that. Like, not even just you don't want to run me, you want to fuck me. Well, yes. You want to fuck me. I'm just trying to be nice about this. Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, I think he was nice about it, and that's part of the problem. I think he should have been angry about it, and I think that anger would have fueled things even more and brought a lot more support his way. Because I think one of the problems with the Democrats in general is that they're too fucking nice. So, but they're sneaky about it though, because you see shit like what Pelosi pulls and some of these other Democrats is like, they're trying to act like they're nice, but they're just as full of shit. They're just sneaky about it. I am under no pretense that politicians are going to tell me the truth. Right. I'm not that dumb. But when I looked at a guy like Bernie, when I look at AOC and the rest of the Squad, I believe that more than 50% of the time, they're not pulling my fucking leg. Right. And that's what I need, is some truth in what the people say they're looking to do. Whether they're able to complete it or not complete it is usually out of their hands. As long as they're attempting and pushing forward and sticking to their morals and better judgment, I'm fine with it. Like, I know you're not going to win every fucking fight. It's just not. You're not Khabib Nurmagomedov, whatever his last name is. You're just not him. And you're not going to win every fucking fight they put in front of you. So, I wish that Bernie was like 10 years younger, because a ticket that was, so maybe not this term because clearly Bernie's not in, But coming in October of 2024, AOC turns 35. So she will officially be old enough to run for the presidency in the next term. I'm not saying that I want her to run for presidency, but if you gave me a president of Bernie Sanders, who has a ton of experience and a ton of truth to the things that he says he's going to work for over the last 30 years, there's no bullshit in there about him lying about things, and anything that he voted for that may not have been as favorable as it should have been, he has good reason for why he did it and will stand behind it. Like, as long as you're standing behind your decisions and you're not waffling, I'm fine with that too. So you give me a card that is Bernie and AOC, I'm voting for that, because I feel like that is the direction that we need to be going towards.
Right.
Less war with other countries for no fucking reason other than money. More attention on education, jobs for true Americans, and to pull all of us at the same time up. That's all I think we need to be focused on. Yeah. We don't need to be focused on the rest of the world the way that the last 50 years of presidents have been.
And that, by the way, is something that I've been saying for like 20 years. Because even when we went into Iraq, you know, after 9/11, I said,
we don't need to be there.
Well, I said we don't need to be there, but also even if we're going in there, I mean, there's the whole weapons of mass destruction, which is another mess.
A big fucking lie.
But I said, you know, we need to go in there with a plan to go in, do what we got to do, and get the fuck out.
Yeah, tactical strike. That's it.
And that's exactly what didn't happen.
I know.
Because the other part of it is, if you look in the past, when was the last war that you could say we had a victory?
Gulf War '92, maybe.
But did we even have?
It was not necessarily a victory, but it wasn't a loss. The victory is that it was short. It was like 7 days.
The last war that we really had a victory was World War II.
Yeah, well,
because Korea
doesn't count because it was no real victory. Vietnam was definitely no victory. We lost so many fucking lives.
Exactly.
And there was no actual true outcome to that war.
Exactly.
I mean, the only reason I point to Gulf War is just because the surrender happened within, you know, I don't know, what was it, 7-9 days?
Yeah.
Like, it was so short, but is that even a war? That's more like a situation.
No.
They call it the Gulf War, so whatever. But other than that, yes, World War II.
My point was, back then, you know, let's not throw our people into another thing that's just going to be an endless wave of bullshit, where we're just flushing our troops down the drain, which is exactly what ended up happening. And that's what keeps happening. So, you know, while Trump has this idea of, like, we'll bring our troops home, yeah, that's great, but, like, he doesn't really have any plan, because you can't, if you're already in, you can't just pull out. Like, there's got to be a process to it. But, yeah, keeping ourselves out of more wars, I'm all for it. You know? But I just think in general, like I said, we're at the point now, the same way that I see more than one America, I see the party split starting with the Democratic Party. And I'm all for it, because you know what? I hate the two-party system. It's a bunch of bullshit, and the last couple of elections prove that more than anything, because here we are looking at two sketchy fucking fuckers with racist histories and sexist histories, and those are the two choices we got.
So, all right, I saw this thing on the internet the other day, and it really struck me, and you brought up the concept of it, asking me about when we won wars, etc. So there was this graphic that's out there that says how much of your life has the U.S. been at war for? How, like, percentage-wise?
Oh, God.
How much of it has it been at war since you've been alive? So if you were born in 1915, 36.9% of your life or more has been at war. Whereas for me, I was born in 76, so 42.9% of the time that I've been alive, we've been at war. But if you go to year 2000, 94.4%, and then 2001, you've been at war 100% of the time that you've been alive. Right. So for the last 20 years, we've been at war with no stop at all.
Well, let's put it this way. If you stopped a random person on the street right now and asked them, who are we at war with?
They don't even know.
Exactly.
They don't even know.
I don't even think I know.
We're at war with everyone, basically. We're at war with the world.
But that's what I mean. It's like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, what's the point? And, you know, once again, I'll go back to it. Okay, Trump's got a good idea, but he's got no plan or any way to execute it.
Well, that's because he doesn't have the skills that are required, or listen to the people who would give him the best advice to make a good decision. Exactly. So, you know, you're left with somebody. I mean, he's the biggest lame duck we've ever had. Oh, it's terrible. Well, and people will tell you that he's doing a great job, and I want to chop those people in half. Like, just give him the full chop. Because those people that say he's doing a great job are clueless. Mm-hmm. And it's just, and as I've said many times before, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I try not to judge people the same way. I try not to judge people based on religion and on all kinds of other things that I have certain views about. But once again, I've seen the dude lie so much and bullshit so much. I don't understand how you can support the guy just based on his own words and his actions, and the fact that he acts like a fucking petulant child on Twitter every day, every single hour of every single day. The dude is posting on Twitter all the time. Half of it is in caps, tons of exclamation points, and it's just a constant, never-ending temper tantrum. Like, how the fuck do you back this? Like, this is not, like, I wouldn't tolerate this from another human, let alone a fucking president. Like, if you were just another human being doing that constantly, I couldn't fuck with you. There are many people who act so similar to him that I do not fuck with. I would probably slap the shit out of you. Like fucking Redman. Such a good song. It's a great. The video is even better. Yeah, the video is amazing, especially the part about how the disclaimer he gives as he's kicking off the video. If you have not seen it, go watch it. Go on YouTube, look up Redman. One of the greatest rappers of all time. What is that song actually called? Slap the shit out of you? Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Or smack the shit out of you, or something like that. So I pulled up just off of a lark, just because I hadn't looked at it in a few months, and they only have unemployment rates like fully knocked out through July because August hasn't ended yet. So we went from an average of 3.5 million jobs, 3.5 million in unemployment, to 14.7 in April, and we're only down through July to 10.2 million unemployed people. 4 months of more than at any point in our 25-year history. The closest we had was in 2010-ish. There were like 10 million people out of jobs due to the economy crash in 2008, well, end of 2008 through 2009. So 2008, 2009 were a steep climb, And then every year after that was a nice steady climb back down to the lowest numbers we've ever seen. And that was due to the work of Obama and a little bit of Trump riding on his coattails at the end. I can't say that that wasn't the truth, because it was the truth.
Right.
But the handling of this pandemic has changed absolutely everything in terms of how the world will view us, how we are able to take care of ourselves in general, and our president and his followers don't seem to care.
Well, let me correct you on one thing, because you said it in the past tense. It's still in the present tense, because we're still dealing with it, and I still say that
number's bouncing again.
We're not at the peak, because I hear more and more every day, and it's starting. And I had predicted before that it would be the end of the summer. I'm hearing more and more about places going out of business.
Oh no, we've been talking about that since show number 1.
Right, and it's starting to happen, and in the next month or so, it's going to happen more and more. And reopening more places or doing indoor dining or whatever else is not going to help you.
No.
Because in the end, you'll really see it go down when the restrictions start to be lifted as far as evictions and things like that.
Yep.
But some people now are doing the mathematics and getting out early, but it'll be a whole different story once the courts are open and once people can actually start making moves, because
they're going to start kicking people right out.
As soon as they get the green light, they're going to start booting people, and you're going to see places going out of business like you have never seen before.
So, since you were at the studio 1 month ago,
yes,
3 businesses across the street in the mirroring, because you know how there's mine and then there's the one across the street looks exactly the same.
Yes.
So 3 businesses over there have closed up and taken off since you've been there.
What kind of businesses?
One was a small deli. So not deli, like a bodega.
Right.
Just a little tiny spot, like, corner store jammed into an abhorrent rent structure that they definitely can't do anymore. Dancewear, so all the girls that dance at the next door dance school no longer have a built-in place to buy new tights and shoes, and the martial arts school closed. That's been there for 15 years.
Well, let me ask you this. When it comes to the dance school or the martial arts school, have they been operating?
I don't think the martial arts school has, and I'm sure the dance school was doing online work, so they're still there.
Right, so they don't have the customers coming in to feed to the place anyway.
Right. So, like the dog wash depot is still there. What else is it? There's like a dentist, so they're back open, but you got to have like an appointment 30 years ahead of time. And there's a barber, but you also got to have an appointment like 25 years ahead of time so that you can get in there at some scheduled thing and sign a whole bunch of papers agreeing that you don't have COVID, etc.
Oh yeah.
And like there's a sushi spot, and the sushi spot had like a double door system. So when you open their first door, it's basically like going to like a late night liquor store in the city where it's just a glass box you're walking into and they hand you something through the fucking window. You can't go in. You can't even go in their store. They're like, nah, we're good without you.
Yeah.
So come get your food and go home.
It's funny you say that, because I was thinking about this today too, because I had a doctor's appointment today, and I went to my doctor's appointment, and usually when I go to the doctor, not that I go all that often, but when I go to the doctor, there's usually 5 or 6 people sitting there in the waiting room. Like they
just waiting forever.
They pack it in because that dude is just banging them out. You know what I mean? Because listen, yeah,
That's how they
being
get paid.
doctor, well, that's how you get paid, and at this point, you know, that's probably the only way to get paid is to pack it in.
Yep.
And now I go there, and I'm the only one there. First of all, they don't even let me pass through the doorway until they check my fucking temperature.
Mm-hmm. But
then,
I mean, if you're asymptomatic, it doesn't even matter.
Well, that's true.
You could still be carrying it, and they would never even know. Like,
oh yeah,
the only way they're going to catch you with the temperature check is if you're fucking burning.
Right. Yeah, but it's just you look at it that way. Even just the mathematics, like I said, he used to pack it in, and now I'm the only one in the office, so they're spacing out their appointments, which means they're getting less people,
which means they're making less money.
Exactly.
Which means they're going to need less nurses and less administrative staff because it won't be as hard to keep up with. I mean, that shit trickles.
Right, but that's my point, is that it all trickles down to the point of where, like, I doubt the dude is hurting, but that's got
rolling in it.
That's got to be a significant impact on his bottom line. And it's one thing if you're a doctor, like, okay, you can roll with the punch on that one, but you're one of these smaller businesses. It's a lot harder to roll with the punches.
Yep.
Absolutely. And like I said, I think once they start lifting things as far as evictions and stuff like that, I've heard stories of people who are, out of work and their landlord can't evict them, but their landlord is up their ass and is like, yo, I got bills too, which, honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, not everybody's a fucking slumlord, multi-million-dollar real estate mogul. Some of these people may own a couple of properties and, they got bills to pay. So I'm not just shitting on landlords.
No, I mean, hey, they got bills too. I get it. But the problem is the government hasn't helped all the way across the board.
No. And I think that's the ticking time bomb, because we've talked about mathematics before. Over time, month to month, yeah, okay, you can't get evicted, but that doesn't mean you don't have to pay your rent.
Right. And so it's not like they're saying, hey, for the last 6 months you didn't have to pay rent and we're just going to start charging rent again when you come back. No, we want all our back rent right now. And people are going to be like, yo, I don't have it. And they're going to be like, well, yo, you got to go.
Right. And that's what's going to end up happening. And I have heard stories of people who are, property owners who have said, you know what, I'm going to waive, a month's rent, 2 months rent, which is great. That's awesome. And people like that should really be commended for doing that.
Hey, I would be fine if they said, hey, we know that you couldn't be here for the last 6 months, so we're going to take that 6 months and we're going to tack it on. We're going to divide it by 12, and over the course of the next 12 months, you owe us XYZ more for those months just to catch up. Because we realized that you couldn't do it, and we don't want to lose your business. But people are willing to cut their own fucking nose off to spite their own faces, because they're going to get rid of these people, and then they're going to struggle to get someone new in there.
Right, but as I know from seeing tons of properties empty on big streets in Manhattan for years, sometimes it's better for them, because then it's a tax write-off.Use
Just losing money.
And that's a whole other fucked up side of it, because I used to take the express bus. It used to go down Fifth Avenue and up Madison Avenue every day to go to work, and I used to see tons and tons of vacant space up and down both of those streets. Why is it vacant? Because in the end, it's easier for them to just write it off.
Yep.
And it's crazy, but that's how this whole system is set up. So the worst is yet to come, because once they lift the eviction, the moratorium on evictions, yeah, you're going to have some people that are willing to work with people like what you were just talking about, but you're going to have your other people that are like, fuck you, pay me.
Yeah, well, all right. So in that same parking lot that the studio is in, for the 2.5 months that it's been free range to let people dine outside, or maybe 6 weeks or whatever it's been, the restaurant down the end didn't have any dine outside options. And I found out through digging that the owner of my property determined that he wanted extra rent on top of the rent that they're already paying to utilize the parking lot.
Wow.
Because he was going to lose parking spaces to this tent that they were going to put out there. So the business, for a while, figuring that the inside dining was coming, just were like, well, screw you, we'll stay closed.
Right.
So they were the only restaurant in Ewing that's like real restaurant that truly stayed closed, because their landlord was being a complete dick about it.
Can I ask you a stupid question?
What?
When was the last time you saw that parking lot absolutely full?
When people were actually at work. It's full during the day. So, like, there are times if you go there in the middle of the day and everything's normal, that parking lot is full. Like,
right.
Like nowhere to pull in, nowhere to park, or very little places to park, because there are 3 or 4 different restaurants that you can go to, plus a bank, and a few knick-knack stores that people like to go to in the middle of the day while they're on their lunch break or whatever. So the parking lot was generally packed Monday through Friday, but
when it was normal.
When it was normal, but when it's COVID time, it's not normal, and
right.
You pull in there in the middle of the day, and sometimes it looks like a ghost town.
Right. So it didn't really put him out at all.
At all.
He's just being a dick.
And you know what? The harder you press these restaurants for stupid shit like that, the bigger chance they have of going out, because they're not making any money if they're not open.
Well, listen, their whole math is all fucked up anyway, because you had servers that work on tips. There's no tips because there's no indoor dining. So you probably have to cut a couple of servers loose.
Yep.
If
you got a bartender, you got to cut them loose because nobody's sitting around the bar. And that's what this restaurant had, was a huge bar clientele. So, come 5 p.m., even though all the other businesses were closed, that end of the parking lot was full of people, because everybody was going there for happy hour drinks and then maybe some dinner. And right. Then, maybe the family was going to come over and meet them for dinner, or, families were going to come in for dinner or whatever. Like, the nighttime, they kept that end of the parking lot going. Now, they have a big-ass tent out there. There's probably 25 tables under the tent, and every night, that parking lot is jumping with people down that end of the parking lot eating, right. Rain or shine, because the tent is big enough that they can pull it off, and they got some sides on it if they need them to keep the rain from just blowing in. It's right. Perfectly fine. But, as I said, landlord was willing to legitimately sacrifice them over a couple $100 a month to utilize the damn parking lot.
Stupid.
And, obviously they had to give in, because it was either give in or let your business die.
Right. That's crazy.
But I just don't understand why people are like that. Like, if it was me, I'd have been like, yo, put the fucking tent up. Let's go get my rent.
But that's, it goes back what we were talking about at the very beginning, that some of these people are just so money hungry. It's like a disease, and they can't cut anybody a break for a second.
But this guy cut me such a break. It's so weird. Like, just so that I'm clear with my listeners, like, when I moved into my space, I spent the money out of my own pocket to build it. But in return, the guy who is this landlord also allowed me to stay there without paying rent for a large portion of time. And we didn't work out like true terms for a while after I finished building. He seems like a reasonable person in most cases. But in this case, he just wasn't budging, and it's really fucking weird to me because it seems like the time in which you would budge.
Maybe there's more to it.
Maybe there is. But, you know, from as an outsider perspective who likes to eat at that restaurant, it's a place that they weren't even open for takeout. That's how close they were.
Wow.
Like, you could not order from them. You couldn't do anything. They were just closed.
It's crazy. I don't know. But
it's so weird.
The bottom line of it when it comes to these mathematics is that here we are at the end of August. So almost September. Mm-hmm. Most places close down in the middle of March. So when you reach the middle of September, you're now talking about 6 months.
6 full months.
6 months. And who can dig themselves out of owing 6 months rent?
If you could dig yourself out of owing 6 months rent in a month, then you didn't need to be digging yourself out of 6 months rent because you had the money anyway.
Right. But that's what I mean. Like, I just think the apocalypse is coming when it comes to small business.
It's going to be on.
Yeah, because
it's going to be a bloodbath.
There's just no way. And if you think things are messed up now, those unemployment numbers are going to skyrocket. And I don't know how Trump and his minions are going to spin that shit. I really don't. It blows my mind that they've been able to spin it this far. But much like everything else, I think there's going to come a point in time when it's over. And that goes for people holding on to hope about money. That goes for people bullshitting their way through things like Trump does. Like, I think there's a brick wall coming for a lot of these things.
People have not come to terms with the fact that when this school year opens and the death starts rolling in, that how far down that is going to trickle to businesses, to families, to pure economic collapse. They have not taken this into account. And I'm not talking about just the yous and me's. I'm talking about the superintendents of school systems that have the ability to go ahead and say, hey, just learn from your house for now. Like, literally, this all ties together into one big absolute failure. And we had the option to not be in this position, and we've continued to flaunt, just in the face of true information, just flagrantly say, fuck it. Let's just keep pushing forward. I want my freedom. I don't care about anybody else or anybody's potential health impact. Fuck you. I am doing what I want to do. And it is going to come back home to roost between now and Christmas. Christmas is going to be an ugly fucking time.
I agree, because here's another thing to think about. You know, the clock is ticking, and I mentioned this on Facebook and had a whole discussion about it, but it was related to schools, but it goes for other things also. The clock is ticking because all of these outdoor ideas when it comes to dining, because
it dries up when it gets fucking cold, bro.
Exactly. Because my discussion was about de Blasio suddenly has an idea to do outdoor school shit.
Yeah.
And I was just laughing about it because it's like, okay, so how are you going to work that when winter comes? But it applies to the outdoor dining shit also. It's like, who's doing what in
late October, let alone December or January. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
The flip side of that I had to laugh about is, I was texting with Rich, who we had on the show, who's a teacher, and I was joking around about it because then I realized as I was texting with him and I said it to him and he laughed about it, and then I said it on Facebook also. Here I am thinking about, what's going to happen in October, November? Meanwhile, what's the school going to be open a week before it closes again?
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be open.
Like, it's going to open, everybody's going to get sick. Yeah.
It's going to be 7 minutes. It's good. They're going to walk in, every kid is going to have it, and they're going to take it all home, and we're all going to fucking die, and then that's going to be that.
Yeah, so here I am worrying about like a couple of months when meanwhile they open the schools, it's going to be a couple of weeks tops.
Yep.
And it's just a joke. But once again, it's just more bright ideas. And listen, when it comes down to it, I don't like Joe Biden. The guy's got a lot of issues, but I'll vote for him just for the simple fact that he went out during that Democratic convention and he said he would do a federal mandatory mask thing. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you know what? It seems so simple.
Yeah.
So many doctors say it. Like, and listen, they could all be full of shit. I really don't know.
I don't know either, but
I'll trust them before I trust some fucking fake real estate hack with fucking
clearly doesn't know
tan.
Anything. He doesn't know anything.
No, he doesn't know a goddamn thing. But just based on that, you know what? I'll fucking vote for Joe Biden because he's the only choice we got that just for that alone. Okay, you got me because we fucking need it. Because all of these people are out of their goddamn minds. It's like if we had done that back in March,
we'd be out of this fucking thing.
We'd be out of this thing. We'd still have to, we'd still have to handle it here and there in small cases. But look at every other country in the fucking world compared to us.
We would still be wearing the masks, but we would be out doing all the things that we need to do with far less fear.
Yeah. Yeah. And listen, I'm going crazy sitting in my fucking house.
Same.
You're doing the same. And look, what other shit that we do as hobbies and as just things that we do to pass time, like all that shit is gone.
Yep.
Like I used to like going to the movies. I can't go to the movies.
Nope.
We're musicians. We would go out and play shows and go to see our friends play and shit like that.
Doesn't exist anymore.
We're not doing any of that. We're not doing any of that. I'd kill to go to a fucking hardcore show. Just to go and be
wouldn't
out.
Even matter what band it was at this point.
No,
go.
I'd just be happy to see a show and to go chill out with my friends. I love to go and sit down in a fucking restaurant. I love to go sit down in a pizza place.
Yeah, just have a slice. Just go catch a slice.
And it's just...
I will say when we did grab those cheesesteaks and we kind of sat inside in the corner, it was pretty cool to just not be forced to sit outside or rush home with a meal.
But that's what I mean. This is shit that I like. And is it the end of the world? No, but you know what? Like, our whole lifestyles are different right now. We're not doing any of the shit that we get enjoyment out of.
And I'm not outwardly complaining about it. I'm not making posts whining about it on the internet. It is what it is, and I've accepted the consequence of where we're at right now. I will wear the mask when I need to go out into public, whether I like it or I don't like it, because I care about the people around me, and I care about the people who I don't even know, and I don't want to get it, and I don't want to give it to anyone if I already have it, because it would be a dick move otherwise.
But I'm also pissed off about it because you know what?
Could have been avoided. It
could have been avoided. And that's the whole thing. It's like, listen, if I got to deal with stupid shit because of something that I did, that's the way it is, and I'll accept that. But if I got to deal with something stupid, especially on a long-term basis, when somebody could have done something about it and just didn't, that pisses me off.
I'm with you.
You know, and that's where we're at, because Jesus Christ, like, and everybody's going crazy because so many people, you know, they have their own outlets, they have their own things that they enjoy, that they like, just like what we're talking about, and nobody's able to do shit. Like, listen, do I love my job? No, but I don't hate my job, and I wish, you know, that I had that routine.
Yeah, me too.
You know,
like, and I actually, now that I've been working from home, I miss going to the office because it was a respite from being in my house.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
Now I'm sitting in right now doing this show. I'm sitting in the same exact position with all the same shit that I would normally have in front of me while I was working. Right
Same
here.
here. Same
and it's
here.
like there's no detachment from work time to personal time in most situations.
Well,
so
that's the problem that a lot of school kids have also, because it's just, there's no structure, there's no separation, there's too many distractions, and it just doesn't work the same way.
It's just not.
And we're in that same boat. But
yeah, it's just weird.
It's
a weird situation, but I am sucking it up because this is what we have to do.
Right, but I'm getting more and more pissed off about it because I see how this orange fucking idiot just fucked this up, because you know what? If he was on top of shit, we could have been halfway through this thing already. At least. And instead, here we are sitting, you know, spinning wheels because we really have no idea if or when this thing is ever going to let up, because we're not doing anything. He's trying to rush a vaccine that'll probably end up getting people sick, because there's a reason why these things take a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, here we are twiddling our thumbs while, you know, everybody's losing their minds. And we could have avoided all this shit. So
could have easily been avoided.
Yeah.
Basically, at the end of the day, 2020 in general can suck my whole entire dick.
Yeah. And Donald Trump can suck my whole entire dick.
Well,
because fuck that dude.
That doesn't even need to be said.
Yeah.
Because fuck that dude 100%.
Yeah. Dude is worthless. Absolutely worthless. And that goes for anybody that sits there and enables his bullshit too.
Yep.
Fuck out of here with that noise.
Yeah, I'm 100% through with Trump supporters. I can't, like, I've deleted every single, anytime somebody posts some bullshit on the internet about Donald Trump in a positive light and it comes across my desk, they get the ban hammer. I'm out. I'm not on the internet for that type of negativity in my personal timeline. Like, I may not be rude to you in person, but I don't need to keep you around because you're not adding anything to my day other than stress, and I have enough of that. So you can kiss my whole ass and take it down the line.
I'm right with you. I just don't think there's any explaining it anymore.
Like, I see people online saying, well, I want to have opposing viewpoints and I don't want to live in a vacuum or an echo chamber or whatever. I don't necessarily need to have an echo chamber, but I don't care if I'm arguing with you about the validity of a movie or some music thing or some random nonsense about a TV show or whatever. But when it comes down to questions of morals, if you have the ability to accept Trump, I feel like you don't have the right morals to be around me. So you're out.
Yeah, I don't disagree at this point. I've tried to be, like I said before, tolerant, even though, because like I said, I have have controversial views on other things like religion and things like that, and I'm tolerant because I understand, I have my thoughts and other people have their own, but this is not like that.
I am not a religious person by any stretch of the imagination, and I don't subscribe to any religion. This is a conversation for another day and another time, but I don't find that is something that I need to worry about keeping somebody or not keeping somebody, because that isn't an opinion that requires me to question your moral judgment. In most cases, it's whether you live in reality or you don't. Whatever, you don't live in reality, it's fine. You want to believe that, go on and believe it. But to subscribe, and I'm not talking about the Republican Party, because I have my issues with the actual Republican Party. Mm-hmm. I have a problem with people who are truly into Trump, because he's not a true Republican.
Well, yeah, that's a whole other.
That is my problem. So
I should have gotten into that, but that's a whole other issue.
Yeah,
that we haven't even scratched the surface on. That's a long conversation.
I went to that funeral not too long ago for my friend whose mother passed away, and he is a tried and true Republican in all manners, and we do not agree on a lot of things. But I never have had the concern that he was just having unbridled hatred. And I find that anytime I interact with someone that is a Trump affiliate of any sort, that's the angle I get from them. Mm-hmm. And the hatred that tends to stem from it. Like, I might be animated and angry about how he handles his business, but it's truly just business related. Like, if Trump had come in and actually done a really good job, I wouldn't have shit to say.
Right.
Like, I just would be like, yeah, I don't really like him as a person, but he's getting the job done and he's doing a great job. So it is what it is. But that is not the fucking case. And
not at
when
all.
I talk shit on him, it is because he fucking sucks.
Yep.
Sucks as a person. He sucks as a president. He sucks in every single thing he does. So if you consider him to be the guy, I don't think that you have a good judge character, and I don't need you around me. You gotta go.
Yeah. No,
so
I don't disagree with any of that.
That's where I'm leaving that. I got nothing more to say about him.
Well, I think at this point we've gone pretty long talking about all this stuff.
Yeah. And not as long as in the past, but we got as deep as we're going to get without getting to the table. We could go
for days and days and days and just make ourselves more and more angry, or I could just sit here and scream like fucking Guilfoyle.
You know what? After we get off this fucking call, I'm gonna upload the episode for tomorrow, and I'm gonna watch that while it's going on, just so that I understand what you're talking about. We could talk about it,
One of the things that was mentioned to me was that she said in her speech that the Democrats want to enslave the Republicans.
What kind of nonsense?
I couldn't watch it because I was scared, because crazy lady was screaming at me. But that was one of the things that I was told in the discussion that I had, among many other things.
Just kill me now, please.
I mean,
just kill me now. I'm done. I can't take it.
I don't know. I don't know where they find these people. And keep in mind, this girl, she is Donald Trump Jr.'s girlfriend.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, she has her own, that's not her claim to fame. She used to be on Fox News, and I don't really know the rest of her history off the top of my head. But she she's got her own thing going on. Yeah, she's American attorney, prosecutor, and television news personality.
So just general piece of shit.
Pretty much.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to go ahead and watch that in a few minutes here, and I will reach back out to you offline about my opinion.
I'm just waiting for the text that says, "Oh my God."
Oh, you already know what it's going to say, and it'll probably have a lot more fucking letters in it than "Oh my God," but we'll leave it at that.
Oh my God. Yeah, 2018, she was described by the Washington Post as a conservative cheerleader for President Trump.
Done with her. I'm already done with her.
Oh my God.
I'm
and,
done with everything.
And she tested positive at one point for COVID.
Why couldn't she give it to Trump, bro? Like, why?
It's so close.
He's been so close to it. I swear he's definitely had it, and just nobody said he had it.
And I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here, but you think his brother had it?
Probably.
I think so. I think he'll never admit it.
Oh, of course not.
But I think so. Everybody's very tight-lipped about it, and it really makes me wonder. It'll leak out sooner or later.
It'll come out.
Yeah, it'll leak out sooner or later. Has to. It has to. It just has to.
I'm not gonna laugh about it because it's just not my thing to laugh at people's deaths. But I will find some relief knowing that despite all their statements that it's not real, it's going to go away, and it's this, that, and the other thing, that it came home to roost, and he had to see it firsthand.
I wouldn't be laughing at the death, but I would be laughing at the karma for him.
I can see that, and I'm not going to tell you not to.
Yeah. So that's where it's at. All right, we're done here. We've had enough anger for another week. There's still more Republican convention to be absorbed, because today's only night 2. There's 4 nights, and Trump, unlike every other candidate, Trump is going to appear all 4 nights.
Maybe we'll have to go ahead and have a follow-up on this maybe Sunday evening. Just maybe a quick half an hour follow-up.
It's a variety show.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. This has been The Upgrade. I am Gary Muttley. He is Len Carmichael. TheUpgradePodcast.net to find our social media and links to tell your friends to listen to us online.
Click it or ticket.
And we will talk to you soon. Peace.
Peace.